Yawgmoth, Thran Physician versus Muldrotha the Gravetide, Atraxa, Praetors Voice, and Warlord Radha. We're going to keep this because we do have a second black source from the Charcoal Diamond, and if we can use that to get us up to Liliana, then we'll be able to get into some swamps hopefully, and we'll be able to get some blockers in the way with Weaponcraft Enthusiast. So yeah, I'm not hating this hand. Yawgmoth Thran Physician is a 4-mana mono black commander, a 2/4 with pro-humans. For a life and sack a creature, you can put a minus counter on a creature and draw a card. And then for discard a card and 2 black, you can proliferate. Warlord Radha is a 3/4 with haste, 4 mana in Gruul. Whenever one or more creatures you control attack, add that much mana in any combination of red or green. And until the end of the turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. Atraxa, Praetors Voice is a 4/4, 4 mana in every colour except red. You proliferate at the end step, and you have Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. And then Muldrotha the Gravetide is 6 mana in Sultai for a 6/6. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. Well, we're just getting into all the colourless lands here, aren't we? Let's just get down the Snow Swamp, tap down, and pass the turn. Now, I imagine some of you have seen the EDH Lounge video that I was in. At this point, it was... how long ago was it? Maybe a week ago-ish. And I played horribly in that video. A part of it was I'd somewhat given up pretty early on because I had 3 players gunning for me. But I could have wriggled my way out of a scenario there in which PJ was swinging in with a big angel. I could have just played Yawgmoth and sacrificed a Liliana that was in play, I think. And that would have forced everyone to sack with a Grave Pact. But yeah, I said at the top of the video that I wasn't going to make any excuses. I just played terribly that game. And so recording this one, I wanted to record another Yawgmoth Thran Physician game anyway because I really like it. And I've only played with it 2 or 3 times. So hopefully this game will go much better. Get my concentration levels up there. The Radha opponent has played tap, sacrifice forest, add 3 mana in any combination of Gruul. That is the Orcish Lumberjack. Alright, Edric Sar is good. Let's just get down the Deserted Temple into Charcoal Diamond. And depending on if our opponents get down any creatures this turn, I might just go in for Liliana of the Dark Realms. Although with Liliana, what I'd really like to do is get her out and proliferate up to her limit break, and then she would have our swamps tap for 4 black mana. Although we don't have many swamps, that might just be something to build up to. Maybe Bloodghast next turn. And then the Weaponcraft Enthusiast afterwards, and we can start sacrificing stuff to Yawgmoth. And Warlord Radha has gone in at Atraxa. And Domri Raid, Anarch of Bolas, has come in as well. That gives a +1 buff to power. And it adds mana. Our opponent isn't going to be struggling on mana this game, I don't think. Okay, it turns out Atraxa is Infect. We have Infect in the deck as well, but it's really just a means of surprising our opponents with a victory. Playing out something like a Plague Stinger and showing your opponents that you have Infect is really it's a good way to paint a target on your head. Okay, Muldrotha continues to do nothing. Alright, that is taking us into another black mana, that's really good. In hindsight, perhaps should have held on to that if we're going for Bloodghast, but maybe we'll get into Crucible of Worlds. Let's go in for... I think the Weaponcraft Enthusiast is okay here. And we're going for the servos. The more creatures we have in play, the better Yawgmoth is. Don't forget that we can pay a life and sack a creature to draw a card. And we'll be able to put minus counters on things as well. Unfortunately, won't be able to get rid of this Plague Stinger because it has been enchanted with a Robe of Mirrors. And that gives it Shroud. Down comes Mina and Den for Radha. That will allow them to get in an additional land each turn. Alright, going in at Muldrotha this time. I think Muldrotha had to mulligan down quite a ways, and that might be the reason that they're not playing anything. If that's the case, then good for them for not scooping. Now, I'm just wondering if we get down Atraxa next turn and go in for the Yawgmoth afterwards. Our opponent just went in for a Hull Breach to destroy the Robe of Mirrors. So that means that we can put a minus counter on the Infect Flyer now. And there's another enchantment. Necromancer's Mage Mark. Creatures you control that are enchanted get +1/+1. That's a strange black effect. If a creature you control that's enchanted would die, return it to its owner's hand instead. Alright, we might actually be able to help with our proliferation effects, getting rid of this Gruul player. They have been very strong so far. They've gotten 2 poison counters from the Plague Stinger. Muldrotha missing a land drop, so it's not looking too good for Muldrotha, unfortunately. Let's just go in for our Yawgmoth. And then if there is a board wipe, at least we can respond by sacrificing some creatures. Okay, Domri Raid just had Mina and Den fight the Infector. Clearly the Gruul player is scared that they're going to be infected out of this game. And then yeah, looks like these two are just going to trade blows at each other. And then in comes a Ravager Worm. What does this do? It enters the battlefield with a plus counter or haste, probably a plus counter. And then you can choose either to fight a creature you don't control, or destroy a land with an activated ability that isn't a mana ability. Let's see what they go for here. Okay, and then they are choosing to fight. And yep, getting rid of Yawgmoth. I wonder if we just want to keep hold of our creatures here. We can go for Liliana onto a swamp, if we don't draw into one. Yeah, I say we just let this happen. The Gruul player is really painting themselves out to be the player to go for here. And that's saying something, seeing as how Atraxa is the Infect player. An ongoing investigation from Atraxa. Whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, you investigate, and then for 2 and exile a creature from your graveyard. You investigate and gain a couple of life. Out comes that Plague Stinger again. That goes back into hand because of that black enchantment that they had on it. Muldrotha still not getting into anything, unfortunately. Liliana Heretical Healer is not awful. Although because of our lack of black mana, we can't get Liliana and Bloodghast down. So I think we just go for Atraxa here. And we just really need to hope for another land next turn. Worst case scenario, we can just go for Liliana. Although we might just have to start getting some swamps with our Liliana Planeswalker. We'll see what happens. And fighting the Infect creature again. So the Ravager Worm loses its plus counter. I think the Gruul player is going to suffer heavily to a board wipe if anyone casts one. And then just swinging everything in at the Infect player. Might be worth our opponent getting down Atraxa sooner rather than later so that they can make it difficult for our opponent to swing in, but they can also start proliferating and gaining life as well. And down comes a Yeva, Nature's Herald. Only one card left in hand, and that is the Gruul player out of cards. Cindervines is whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, it deals 1 damage to that player. Want and Sack destroys an artifact or enchantment and deals 2 damage to the permanent's controller. Down comes Atraxa, which is the play that we suggested to them earlier on. And then proliferating a minus counter onto Mina and Den, and a poison counter onto the Radha player. Alright, and that's unfortunate. Muldrotha is not drawing into land, so they've just decided to scoop it up. Alright, we get into a black land. That's really good. Yeah, I say we get down at Yawgmoth here. We'll get 4 Thrall tokens. And this can really help protect us against that Gruul player. And I think that there's kind of an unwritten agreement between us and the Atraxa player here, that this Gruul player is needing to be handled now. Just ripping into a Temple of the False God. Let's see how our opponent attacks here. Yeah, going in at Atraxa as I thought they would. They can recast Radha pretty easily. And I think I might actually help save our opponent's Atraxa here. Well, maybe not. They choose not to block. Had they have blocked there, I would have made one of their creatures weaker with minus counters. But they decide not to block at all, which is fair enough, I suppose, because they can fly over everything that our opponent's doing and gain themselves some life. Alright, a Tezzeret's Gambit from Atraxa. So they will get to proliferate there. Let's, in response to that, put some minus counters on things. Yeah, this is going to work out pretty well for the Atraxa player because they're going to be able to proliferate a lot of minus counters here. We'll get rid of all of our Thrall tokens. And I've just noticed that we've drawn into Skull Clamp, so that is... yeah, with Blood Gas, that's really good actually. Cleared 4 cards off the top as well, because apparently we're not going to be getting into any lands. 4 cards left in Atraxa's hand after the Tezzeret's Gambit. And then a Cyst Bearer. That's a 2-3 with Infect. And then taking out the Domri Raid and gaining 4 life. And there's nothing the Gruul player can do about that. And proliferating again takes the Gruul player up to 5 poison counters. Okay, Astral Cornucopia, I don't think I really care about yet. I've got this urge to get off the limit break here, but I don't think it's the optimal play. I think I'm going to get down Liliana of the Dark Realms anyway, just so that we can get a land for the turn. Let's tick up and get a swamp. Play the swamp, and then it's a Liliana Heretical Healer, I think, and we can flip that over into another Liliana. We'll get some Thrall tokens for our efforts, and then we'll swing in at the Gruul player with a couple of creatures, blocking the Yawgmoth with Yeva. Alright, just tapping out again, and they've kept hold of a card, so obviously we don't know what that is. But they have just decided not to cast it and pass the turn. Now, we really don't want Atraxa swinging in at Liliana here, so I will absolutely minus Atraxa to death if they try that. Okay, there's an Ikarat, so that will put an Infect counter on all of us. We have an Ikarat of our own, so we can do that as well. Military Intelligence, whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, you draw a card. They've only got 2 cards left in hand. And then it's Curious Obsession and Aura. The enchanted creature has +1/+1, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That is going on Atraxa. I think in response to that, we just get ourselves a little 2-for-1 here. Get rid of the Thralls again. Getting ourselves into some nice discard fodder for the proliferation as well. I think I will go for this romantic idea of proliferating Liliana of the Dark Realms. I'd really like my swamps to tap for 4 mana apiece. 1 card in each opponent's hand, so I'm quite fancying our odds here. Then the Infect creature going in at the Gruul player again. That's fine with me. And just blocking with the commander again, so that will take that down for a second time, I think. Alright, see what we draw into here. That's another Coalition Relic. Notice that the Coalition Relic, the Everflowing Chalice, and the Astral Cornucopia each have charge counters on them, which can be proliferated by Yawgmoth for more mana. I say we get into Reliquary Tower, and then we'll swing in at the Gruul player just to get some damage on the board, but also to gain some life with Liliana, letting both of them through this time. And then I think it's... yeah, we'll go for the Astral Cornucopia for 3 mana to put a charge counter on it. Then we will discard a card to proliferate, get rid of the Everflowing Chalice, and then we can put a counter on Astral Cornucopia, Liliana, both our opponents, and that creature. And then why don't we just do that again? Discard the Coalition Relic this time. And now we can minus down Liliana. We get an emblem. That makes our swamps tap for 4 mana. And we have the Deserted Temple, which untaps a swamp for us. Yeah, we can't proliferate our opponent to death yet, unfortunately. So let's just leave that until next turn. We'll go for Bloodghast here, and we'll get down the Skull Clamp. Then we'll get our own Eker-Rats, and we'll clamp the Weaponcraft Enthusiast. That will draw us a couple of cards, and it will flip the Liliana Heretical Healer over and give us a zombie. Then each player can discard a card with the +2. That will empty our opponent's hands. We'll get rid of Black Market. We've got plenty of mana this game. Worldspine Worm is discarded, and that shuffles into our opponent's library. And the Atraxa player got rid of Driven to Despair. Both our opponents in top deck mode now. And there we go, Grand Warlord Radha deciding to call it a day. We would have proliferated them out of the game there anyway. Our Atraxa opponent really helping us by putting a lot of poison counters onto them. And ironically, it's the poison player that is going to go out to infect here, I think. Out comes Atraxa again for our opponent. That is fine with us. We're going to throw some minus counters around at the end of the turn. And then we can proliferate twice, thanks to our swamps tapping for black mana. We will allow them to draw a card here. They're swinging in with 2 or more creatures, so they get to draw a card. Okay, in response to blocks, I will sack the Thrall token to put a minus counter on the Infector. Then another minus counter can go on it as well. The zombie token takes out the Eker-Rats. Could have sacrificed that actually to put a minus counter on the Eker-Rats to draw another card. I don't want to draw the game out too much because I don't want our opponent to quit on us. I want to actually show the interactions as opposed to just explaining them after the game. Alright, we'll put a minus counter onto the Atraxa, sacrifice the Bloodghast. And then there's another one. We'll get rid of some Thralls here. Alright, and now we've got lots of discard fodder. Oh yeah, and we could have proliferated at the end of our opponent's turn there as well. But we've got plenty of mana to do it right now. So let's discard a card to Yawgmoth. The Leaden Mere can go. Getting rid of our opponent's creatures, as well as buffing the Astral Cornucopia and the Liliana. Obviously going to put more infect counters onto our opponent as well. Discard the extra planar lens and do the same again. Nest of Scarabs can go as well. And we're actually at Liliana's limit break now. And then with the last 2 mana, we'll take them up to 8 and then swing in with the Eker-Rats. Get rid of Lightning Greaves. And then we'll swing in with the Infector, which is the 2/1 Eker-Rats. And there we are. Props to my opponent there. I think they knew they were done for, but they decided to let us play out the victory anyway. Ironically, taking down the Infect player with Infect. We only have a little bit of Infect in the deck because we can do some Undying shenanigans with Eker-Rats and Machaos the Unhallowed. And then there's all the proliferation effects as well. So it's just for the sake of keeping 1 card in the library, it's a whole different win condition that we can go for. But yeah, hopefully that somewhat makes up for the atrocious gameplay from the EDH lounge that I exhibited the other day. And I think I'm going to play a few more games with Yawgmoth Thran Physician because I really like it, and there's a lot of interactions that we haven't seen yet in this deck. So hopefully you'll all look forward to that, and I will see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.